which criticism of the kids today is actually totally valid.
I mean, the amount of teachers in America complaining that students of all ages, including teenagers, are unable to read properly is probably something to be concerned about.
One of the odd things about the kids today, which I think will be important to look at in the future, is that kids today are consuming content made by kids. That's never happened before. But a lot of the YouTube channels, TikTok accounts, etc., that they look at are made by kids the same age as them.
I feel like Gen Z is growing up in an era filled with rage bait more than there's ever been in the past. In public discourse is going to look wild when they're in the 30s and 40s.
They are worse in school, not just academically, but behavior-wise as well. A teacher friend told me about how she is constantly getting annoyed by her classes. From how she described it, it sounds like outright bullying. She basically said that they openly mock and laugh at her for everything she says or does. In her words, a running commentary of criticism. A school in a nearby town lost 18 teachers at Christmas, all quit from being sick of the abuse. My year was considered awful when I was in school, but it was mainly refusal to do things, arguments, the usual. Nowadays, it's less back and forth with students and teachers, and more just a barrage of insults and threats.
Having worked at a university, younger people aren't very good expressing their needs. Whenever someone came to my office for something, I had to play with words to try to decipher what they were trying to say in order to give them the help they needed.
Many of them are far too small to effectively operate heavy machinery, particularly those under the age of 10.
Kids today have subpar typing skills compared to the generation that grew up with physical keyboards.
They're overly anxious. Our brains were not fit to withstand criticism on a global scale, which social media offers, and children without yet a prefrontal cortex are stunting their mental health capacity.
Kids today are still suffering with the aftermath of lockdowns, combined with the overexposure to certain badly regulated forms of social media, TikTok.
Kids today will self-diagnose mental health conditions to justify their difficulties in life. Don't get me wrong, young people with legitimate mental health struggles affecting their lives do exist, but unless a medical professional evaluates you and makes a diagnosis, I will take your #actuallyaustic TikTok with a grain of salt. I also have a hard time believing that so many people from Gen Z have did. It's an exceedingly rare diagnosis, so much so that there's even a debate among trained psychiatrists about it potentially not even being a real thing at all.
They seem to have a lot more anxiety than my generation. We were more relaxed. These kids have anxiety and crazy expectations. No one played a sport year-round for 20 hours a week when I was a kid, with few exceptions. These kids play constant sports and after-school tutoring and need to do homework, get good grades, and start athletics at the same time. Gen X didn't give a care about any of that. We opted out.
Their social skills leave a lot to be desired.
Teacher here. They truly are entitled and can't manage or regulate themselves.
They aren't as sociable they used to be. When I was a kid, going to the neighbor's house to wrestle in the backyard was common. Now kids are much happier just sitting at home playing a game.
Some kids today have a very limited attention span and can barely read despite being high school graduates. One of my kids' friends is like this. A sweet person but basically consumes a media diet of YouTube shorts. She doesn't read anything ever. When she talks, she sounds like she's speaking newspeak from 1984. Instead of saying, "This is delicious," she might say, "This is so good."
A new meta-analysis with studies from mainly Western countries just showed that kids overestimate their own abilities more than before. I haven't read it yet, because I just saw it yesterday, but it proves the research by the American psychologist Jean Twenge showing that Americans are getting more narcissistic. It's just happening everywhere in the developed world, and the trend began way before social media. I believe wealth is the cause.
We are in our phones and devices too much to enjoy life with each other.
I think Gen Z are very progressive when it comes to things like LGBTQ, disabilities, and neurodiversity, but they have a big issue with ageism. It feels like a pathological need to be young and a big fear about getting older.
The real problem is the insane way they make a heart with their fingers. If you know what the heck this is.
They're kind of bullies. Not really a new thing, but I thought making fun of other people's clothing/appearance would go away as millennials became parents.
The kids today have victim mindset. They will overreact instead of accepting their fault and working on them if you try to criticize them.
The non-existence of media literacy. The amount of misinformation that is easily spreading on social media is scary. Especially when it comes to stuff like basic biology. Edit. After gaining some new perspectives on this from the comments, I've come to the conclusion that maybe this is more of a me problem since I'm so skeptic, so I tend to double-triple check facts I see on the internet.
Terrible handwriting.
Less emotional maturity and lack of ability to cope under pressure.
Speak in meme phrases instead of actually communicating. No I'm saying as queen.
Their small talk skills are next to nothing.
Basically that their parents failed them.
I knew this thread would be a goldmine.